everybody. Welcome to another chapter of See Damon Trek. So a few weeks ago, Jane and I went and visited our good friends Uriah and Stephanie in Baumholder, Germany. And from there, we drove and spent a weekend in Strasbourg, France. But you're not going to believe what I found at this cathedral. Cathedral Notre Dame de Strasbourg. Discovered while I was there was so epic that I'm going to actually have to put it into 2 videos. So let me set the stage. The Strasbourg Cathedral, construction of that cathedral started in the year 1015. So if you have any idea of history, 1066 was the Battle of Hastings. So construction of this cathedral started 50 years before British history, British modern history actually begun. And it was finished 300 years later in 1439. They used generational architects to complete this building. Sometimes the architect would start it, his son would take up the reins from there, and his grandson and great-grandson would take it from there. It's absolutely incredible. The Strasbourg Cathedral was the world's tallest building from 1647 to 1874. It's just amazing. And today, it is the 6th tallest church in the world. It is the highest still standing existing structure that was built entirely in the Middle Ages. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. What is amazing about this place is that all of the tourists were in front of the cathedral. The reason being is because on Sunday they have Mass and you can't go into the cathedral until after 3 p.m. on a Sunday. So you had thousands of tourists just milling about taking pictures of the front of the cathedral. Now, don't get me wrong, the front of the cathedral is absolutely amazing. So while we were there taking photos and stuff, Uriah, Stephanie, and Jane, they said that they were hungry and that the children were hungry, so they were going to hang out and get something to eat. I wasn't hungry yet. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to walk around the church, cathedral, and see what I can discover. The first thing I discovered as I walked around the left side of the church was just this amazing art store with beautiful paintings and everything that was right across the alley from the church. Now here in Strasbourg, this church is built and it's surrounded just by small alleyways. So then I walk a little further and I see where this priest is pulling into the courtyard of the church. So in the back courtyard. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe I can go in there. So I start to walk in there. And then all of a sudden, some, I guess, docents or whatever, they said, no, you cannot come in here. You cannot come in here. So I said, oh, all right, maybe I'll. So then I was like, no, you know what? Maybe I misunderstood them. Well, as it turned out, I did misunderstand them. The part I misunderstood them about was that I couldn't come through the gates while other cars and traffic were coming through. So I went in there. And lo and behold, there was a bookstore in there. I mean, selling used books, selling little artifacts, nothing big, but it was really cool. It turns out that this cathedral is a seminary. In fact, popes have studied there before. And I'm going to talk about that and that discovery in part 2 of this trip. So I go in there, I check out the bookstore, then I come back out, and I'm like, oh, hey, can I go into the courtyard? And they're like, sure, you can walk around in the courtyard. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I walk around the courtyard, and then I see some people kind of milling about and going into another room. So I go into the other room, and oh my God, it is a used bookstore again, but this is even older books. I mean, I walk into this room and the room itself is as if it is like a prayer room, like it's a church, but it's just a spare room now. And they're selling all of these books, and the art on the walls is freaking fantastic. And I'm looking, and I can't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the Da Vinci Code or something, right? So I'm walking around, and I just was like, hey, how much is this book? And they're like, that is €6. I'm like, oh my, this 250-year-old book is €6? Wow. And then I picked up some prints and some paintings and stuff, and I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible. I can't believe it, right? So I pick up some books. Yeah. I pick up a 250-year-old and a 300-year-old book. And I'm like, well, I'll buy these because I'm going to go back to Uriah, Steph, and Jane and tell them about my great find. Anyway, then on top of that, I pick up a print that was printed in 1933. I pick up another print that was printed around the same time. I get a hand-painted picture from someone unknown, and then I get another picture, probably a Rembrandt or something, I'm not sure, for €30. I couldn't believe it. I felt like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Now here's what's crazy about this church also. During World War II, the stained glass of this church was removed in 74 cases and stored in a salt mine near Heilbronn, Germany. That was so that when the Nazis invaded and they were going to bomb the church, they wanted to protect all of the stained glass. After the war, all of the stained glass was returned to the cathedral by, guess who? The Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives section of the United States military. No, not those guys. These guys, the real heroes of that movie. Now, I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. So I packed up all my goods and I ran to go tell my friends and my wife, but by that time they had gotten so tired that we just went home. But there's even more, because I discovered even more on this trip, and I will discuss that in part 2 of my visit to the Strasbourg Cathedral de Notre Dame. Talk to you soon.